2. Welcome to another Living Life Naturally podcast. And today I'm thrilled to have Sharon Carne with us. Sharon is an author, an international speaker, a sound therapist, a publisher, musician, and recording artist. So from 1988 to 2016, Sharon was a faculty member of the Conservatory, Mount Royal University. And then in 2008, her work changed, and co-founder of the Emergent Workforce Program for wellness was the switch that she made. And through the Sound Wellness Institute, holistic health practitioners receive the highest level of competency training in Canada. Just through using sound and music, and I say just, but there's a whole lot more than that, to get the most support for their practice. So the Emergent Workforce Program is dedicated to restoring well-being, community, purpose, creative collaboration, and kindness to the workforce. So welcome, Sharon, and please tell our visitors where you're joining us from today.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I'm just so delighted to be here as a guest on your podcast.
Thanks.
I'm in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada.
And how is the weather in Calgary?
It's coolish today, although we have another heat wave coming. So it's been, we've had a warmer summer than usual.
Yeah, I think a lot of places have. Very interesting. So please tell me a little bit more about what you do, because as you and I talked about, I remember a few weeks ago, we talked about the fact that both of us have a musical background. Mine is singing, yours a lot more developed than mine. But so to people like you and I, just being around music can really bring us to a peak of, I don't even know how to describe it. It just puts me on another level.
It does for me too, Lynn. And the other levels for me grew in my awareness over the years with my work at the Conservatory. About 25 years ago, I had a group of adult students who were really nervous about performing in front of other people. So I ordered every book on stage fright that I could find. And so after going through all of the books, I found several exercises that we practiced in informal performances, like coffee houses and art gallery openings, places where you don't really think people are listening. And so we found one exercise that was really effective. And what it was imagining a color while you're performing. And what that does is it distracts the critical mind and then allows the music to flow more easily. Because when you're performing music, that critical mind will often interrupt what you're doing with, uh-oh, here comes the hard part, or things like that, or an evaluation of your perception of the performance as you're ongoing. So it's quieting that part of the mind. Well, imagining a color was fascinating because every time we did it, someone in the audience would get the color.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, Lynn, one time I was performing a whole concert and I had chosen one piece to practice the color technique with. And afterwards, this woman came up to me, pointed to that piece on the program, and she said, Sharon, this piece made me feel like I was sitting beside the ocean. The color of the water was so blue. And I thought, okay, this is too many synchronicities in order not to pay attention to it. So I started asking the questions, what is it about sound that makes it a carrier wave for thought and emotion, and what else can it do? So I started doing my own research on the internet, ordering a lot of books on sound, and eventually ended up training with two of the pioneers in the United States. It's such a fascinating way. You know, some of the things that change your life you never expect, they happen as a synchronicity, and my whole journey with sound wellness was the same. It came from a phone call out of the blue. I received a call from the director of the Integrative Health Institute at the university, and she said, "Sharon, I hear you're into sound therapy." Word gets around the university, I guess. So she asked me to create a program in a study on stress as a facilitator because they wanted to test sound therapy. They had done a previous survey knowing that staff and faculty and students were highly stressed
Mm.
at the university. So I created the program and delivered that, and it was so effective. I got questions on the last day with, how do we learn more about this? Where do we go? And I couldn't send them anywhere.
Okay.
So a month after my participation in that study, I created Sound Wellness as a way to start getting that information out there. And that was 12 years ago.
Mm.
So there's been a lot of evolution since then, which I'm grateful for.
So, what is it about sound that helps people, say, relieve stress or helps their well-being?
That's a fabulous question. And what I love to say to start with the answer with that, Lynn, is that sound is food for your nervous system.
Mm.
We know that there's junk food, there's good food, and there's superfood. Well, it's the same with sound. There's junk sound, like a jackhammer, or a sound that just grates on you and
Mm.
raises stress hormones. Then there's good sound, like nature sounds, or your most favorite music or song. And then there's super sound, which is these bowls behind me and using your voice in specific ways, using certain types of music that creates a huge response of healthy hormones from the nervous system. Good sound also does that. Sound works directly with the nervous system in the release of hormones that stimulate the immune system. At least 4 of them have been measured in experiments, 4 direct responses from the immune system from listening.
Wow.
There's also, if you're playing music or singing with other people, there's a release of dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. So, dopamine is the feel good hormone.
Mm-hmm.
Serotonin balances the sleep wake cycle, it's one of the things it does. And then oxytocin is the bonding hormone. And I know when you've sung with choir, you've been in choirs and sung with other
Yes.
groups. And I have all my life, I've sung in choirs. That connection, and even if you're at a big sports event and everybody is singing "We Will Rock You," it's the same thing. It's an
Mm.
oxytocin boost which bonds everyone together.
Mm. Fascinating. So, tell me a little about the bowls.
Oh, the singing bowls. I love to call them a reset tool. It's like the sound, especially the old Tibetan bowls, the sound of them can shake everything up within your body. And here, maybe I'll backtrack. Sound is defined as vibrational energy. It
Mm.
actually pushes against molecules and atoms. It's a very physical energy. It pushes every sound you make with your voice, or every sound around you pushes against every atom in your body, creating waves of vibration as it pushes. So I have a Tibetan bowl here, and I love to play it for everyone. And so the sound of one of the things is in that reset is the sound creates a shakeup of all of your atoms, which allows emotional energy that may be stuck, that's ready to just go. That's one of the great gifts of Tibetan bowls. I've had many clients where we do Tibetan singing bowls on the body in a session.
Mm.
They leave completely relaxed and emotionally strong at the end because there's so much relaxation and release. As the Tibetan bowl is wobbling muscle tissue, it allows muscles to relax once the sound stops. the energetic parts of the human being, the biofield, which is the electromagnetic activity of all the atoms and cells within you, creates a biofield, which is being measured by many scientists. And this biofield also gets shaken up, allowing any any disturbances in the field to just reset back to normal, natural, healthy function once the sound stops. Your body knows how to be healthy. Your body knows how to heal. And sound will help shake up the stuff that's keeping things stuck in order to stimulate that natural healing ability of the body. So let me play it a couple of times, and there's lots of levels of sounds in here and lots of wavering sounds, which are also brainwave entrainment tools, which helps the
Mm.
relaxation. Okay. Did you hear the waverings in the sound?
Yes, I did.
Every bowl has a slightly different sound to it. And another interesting thing about the Tibetan bowls, most of these I have here, this one and the one behind me, could be hundreds of years old. And in the traditional way of making them, a flat piece of metal is pounded into a round shape with a hammer. And it's believed that as a bowl, a traditional bowl was being made, that there was an om or a mantra or a prayer in every single hammer stroke, which then is all of these prayers are released when every time the bowl is tapped or played. And so it's like releasing a million prayers into the space or into the energy, the sound energy that's going through your body and moving all your molecules. It's such a fascinating tool.
Yeah, music is really a fascinating thing because I'd never really thought about it because I started at the age of 5 singing in school and in church, and then went on into competitions and different things. And I never thought about any kind of vibrational effect that it had. I just know how I felt, and I know from what people said to me how it made them feel. And I think that in today's society, and forgive me for the young people on here, but so much of the music doesn't give you the same kind of feel-good vibration. I was thinking when you were talking about a jackhammer, so to me, that's what rap music does to me. It doesn't bring me any kind of peace or emotional high, whereas different kind of music does. And I realize it's different for everybody in what they're listening to.
Absolutely, Lynn. And that is one of the most fascinating things about different styles of music. And Daniel Levitin has been studying, he's a neuroscientist, and has been studying people's response to sound and music, particularly music, for a long time. And some of his results are fascinating, Lynn. They found that if you're listening to your favorite music, no matter what style it is, if it's your favorite music, you will still get that response from the nervous system. And I know years ago, our younger son went into a serious depression in high school,
Mm.
and he refused medication. He was in a clinical depression, and he did not like. He tried it once and did not like the way it felt. And so what he ended up doing is he developed this love of heavy metal music. And
Mm,
my husband and I are going, uh-oh, you know, but you know what it did for him? Now, everyone is different in their response to this style of music. For him, it helped to heal him because it helped him to process the dark emotions. It was very much a dark night of the soul. It helped him process the dark emotions and the anger and all of the things he was feeling. And he would it would help him feel better afterwards. So if he came home from school or came in from being with friends and was frustrated or angry, he'd run up to his room, slam the door, you know, teenagers, and then he put this music on really loud. My husband and I would do this. And then he'd come down in about half an hour later feeling so much better. What's for supper, Mom? You know? And so he did this often enough that we thought, okay, this is helping him actually. So for him, heavy metal music became a healer. And one of the things that I always did, and he always loved to share with me, were his favorite bands. And I love to check the words. And the bands he chose had positive messages,
mm,
which was his own soul's wisdom, I hope, kind of going into that choice of the kind of music he chose to listen to. It still had the qualities of sound and those things, but the message in it was positive. So those two things and in his choice were a big learning for me about a style of music I
mm,
I still really don't like that much. However, with him, we sit and listen to his favorite musicians, the ones who are highly talented, and all the we marvel over the technical accomplishments, the style of music they're doing. His tastes are shifting into really being interested in high quality musicianship, even though it is quote heavy metal and kind of
mm,
evolving at that higher range of musicianship. Anyway, that story for me helped to shift my perspective. And after a number of years of giving presentations for large groups of people, and with teachers conventions, working with businesses, and playing a variety of music, the individualized response, the unique response every person has is one thing that is consistent. One person can say to a piece of beautiful music of Vivaldi or Bach, I love that. It just helped me feel so relaxed. And the person sitting beside them is
yeah,
saying, I can't stand it. I wanted to
yeah,
leave the room.
yeah,
Turn it off. You know,
yeah.
it's fascinating.
It is. My son was into heavy metal, and so I totally get that. And that actually kind of shifts my perspective a bit because that is something that uplifts him when he listens to it. And one of his sons is into it just the same. And it's so that's really very helpful to know that. So it's just very important that we find what it is that moves our soul or our spirit, so to speak, with the music and go with it and not think, well, I can't listen to that because it's not good music, because it really is an individualized thing onto how it makes you feel then.
Absolutely. There's another aspect of how your heart responds to beat and rhythm that can be really useful when you want to create your own playlist for relaxation. So we know that a relaxed heartbeat is somewhere between 50 and 70 beats per minute. Now, one thing that most people don't know is every time you go into the mall or the grocery store, there's always music playing.
Mm,
Well, it takes only about 4 or 5 minutes for that music to change your heartbeat. Your
mm,
heartbeat is designed to match or try to match the beat of any music around you. Now, if you go back to that relaxed heartbeat, a relaxed heartbeat between 50 and 70 beats per minute, halfway is 60 beats per minute, which is 1 second. So it's like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. So go through your music collection, create a playlist of music that has a beat at around 60 beats per minute, and put it on in the background while you're doing other things. You'll be surprised
Mm,
at how once if the heart is one of the symptoms of stress is an elevated heartbeat. So if your heartbeat is moving quickly like that, then within a few minutes, the heartbeat will start to settle down to about 60 beats per minute. And then you will start to breathe a little slower. Your stress hormones will lower and you'll feel more relaxed.
mm,
It's fascinating. I did this with a corporation downtown in Calgary. We did this experiment with a bunch of engineers, and one of them had his Fitbit on. And so I put together three different pieces of music, 5 minutes each to test heartbeats. So he's got his Fitbit and he's marking every minute where his heartbeat is. And halfway through, it took him about 7 minutes. Halfway through, boom, 60 beats per minute, and it
mm,
stayed that way for the rest of the musical selections. I'd be curious to see how long it stayed that way when the music
mm,
stopped.
mm.
But it was fascinating and very effective.
That's very interesting because I've always run a very high heart rate. Um, I will have to try that myself and see if it brings, because my watch also checks my heartbeat. And I used to always exercise with my headsets, with my music that I loved. But because it's so hot here in Florida, I'm actually hiking on my treadmill with iFit at the moment. And so it does measure my heart rate, but of course they're trying to get your heart rate up. So I don't have that music that I always kind of gel with because they're talking and walking you through. So that would be very interesting to check my heartbeat when I'm listening or singing or I'm very interesting that my husband has a very low heart rate, um, but he's not musically inclined and he doesn't often listen to music.
It would be interesting if it's lower than 60, because 60
It
is
is.
kind of that, is to explore. If it stabilizes at a heart rate that's comfortable, I tend to have a lower heart rate. If I'm stressed, it's up. And that's when I'll go into either an intervention or listen. For me, it's Baroque music. I love to play Bach, or it's Mozart. And Beethoven, I'd rather play when I'm driving, especially the exciting parts of Beethoven, because that stimulates
Mm,
the mind and the heart. However, Mozart is for me, and Vivaldi and many of those styles will keep my heartbeat at about 60. You can also purchase recordings that are designed this way.
mm,
There's a series of recordings called Sound Health Series, and they're published by advancedbrain.com. So when you
mm,
go into their website at advancedbrain.com, go to products and then go to CDs, then you'll find the Sound Health series. This is I like to call it engineered music. It's music that's designed to manipulate the heartbeat to keep it at a relaxed rate or stimulate it to keep you focused and productive. It's a fascinating series,
mm,
mostly classical styles. So we found when we played selections from this series, it doesn't work for everybody. However, there are other styles of music that do the same kinds of things. Nature sounds, for example, a combination of water sounds are very relaxing, and people have fountains or love to have wave sounds in the background for
mm,
relaxation. Birdsong, on the other hand, stimulates the nervous system and the brain. So if you have both of those, then it's almost like the best of two worlds. You have the relaxation ability the ability of the water to create relaxation, and then the birdsong to focus the mind.
mm.
Really fascinating stuff.
Mm. So I can see where, so for myself as a health coach or life coach, dealing with people with stress, this is really a piece of the puzzle we don't always think of, but yet you have worked with health practitioners and health coaches to teach them this element. And definitely, I would think a very powerful part of bringing that healing and relief to people.
Very much so, Lynn. It's not the whole puzzle, it's a piece of the puzzle, like you
Yes,
said.
yes.
And combining all of those things that help support our health, then sound and music can be really supportive. Mhm.
Mm. And where do like musicals come in with that? So a lot of people love to go to musicals. They um, that is to them very calming, and yet the pieces of music change throughout the whole musical. So does that kind of bring them to a stimulated area, then maybe to a more relaxed sense? I mean, how does that work for people?
That's such a fascinating question. And here to me, in my experience of going to operas and musicals, I love musicals. And the odd opera and the orchestra, of course. I love going to the orchestra.
Mm,
And when you listen with your body, sound goes through you. So when you go to a musical, all of the instruments, all of the sounds go through you. Now, if you're, one of my favorites is to go to the orchestra, and they have wood floors in the theater, a little bit of carpet. But when you're listening to the orchestra, you can feel the low instruments come right up through your feet. The
mm,
tubas, the
mm,
timpani, the low sounding instruments you feel in the lower part of the body, in the legs and in the lower abdomen. The instruments that move the heart are violins
I love the
and
violin.
flutes. Flutes a little bit, although flutes are more in the head. Flutes and oboes, the high sounds are up here. The strings are heart instruments. And so when I go to the musical or the orchestra, it's like I love listening with my body we listen with our ears, but we don't realize that our bodies listen as effectively as our ears do. So noticing that, and then it's the same kind of thing at the end. You're taken through a story, you're taken through a variety of vibrations and feelings. Every part of your body is moved and vibrated at different
Mm,
levels of pitch and story and emotion, of course. And then at the end, there's such a wonderful feeling because the sound stops and the body, in all its beautiful, wonderful wisdom, goes, oh, back to normal, natural, healthy patterns. It just does its
mm,
automatic reset. And I think that's why people feel so good after this. The nervous system's had a workout with all kinds of release of hormones. And then at the body, the tissue's been vibrated by different sounds. And then at the end, the body just goes, oh, okay, back to homeostasis.
mm,
It's fascinating.
mm. It is fascinating, and I really would encourage our listeners, if they're not in tune with this, to really get in tune with it, because it could really make or break their day.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree.
So tell people, Sharon, where they can find you.
Our website is soundwellness.com. And we have several websites, and access to all the other websites is at Sound Wellness. Our online store is there, and our blog, the blog is there. So you can go back and learn all kinds of fascinating ways
Mm,
that sound affects you in the blog. So if people are curious, then I welcome them to go and check out the blog articles. And our soundwellnessinstitute.com is where we have our practitioner programs and the workplace wellness
great.
links.
And you have a free resource for our listeners today, right?
I do. And I mentioned the effect of water and birdsong. And the free gift is called Woodland Song. It's one of my CDs. This is a free download of 60 minutes of gently bubbling mountain stream and woodland birds. So it's a way to explore either either using it as a relaxation, using it when you're working, putting it in the background when you're cooking dinner, notice it around the kids, explore using it in different ways, being mindful that we all respond uniquely to sound and music. We do have a generalized response of health to nature sounds because that's how we evolved
Mm,
in nature.
mm. Well, I will definitely drop all of those in the show notes so that people can easily find it. And thank you so much for joining us today. This is really fascinating and something that's just very special to my heart because I know how sound can really change you. So thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and all of your knowledge with us, Sharon.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Lynn. I've just been so delighted to have this chat with you.
Thanks. And we'll chat again soon. Thank you.